teach hard work. You can't teach good work ethic because you have the ability to advance through hard work and smart investing. How do you teach that to a kid who comes from a home where he may not have that from his parents? There's a huge concern because I think education, at least amongst our students, is viewed as something that you're just required to do, something that you really don't care much about, and that's our basic points.
Under task 1, kind of a recurring theme, our biggest surprise was 52% of kids entering kindergarten weren't ready. That was also our biggest concern, and how do you fix that? We had lots of good discussion about a great deal of the subjects on task 2, and wish, quite honestly, we'd had more time. But we decided to focus on organization, structure, and instruction. One of the things that came up was larger class sizes at high school is just as detrimental as they are at the elementary schools, especially in the core classes. And then we kind of colored way off the page, if we're thinking 10 years down the road, structure of grade levels. We thought K-5 sites would be great, 6, 7, and 8 by themselves, have a separate 9th grade site for all the 9th graders, because I mean, let's face it, everybody in this room knows if you lived through puberty once, you did good. So if they're all by themselves, it would be a good thing. And then 10, 11, 12. And then the other thing that we talked about that we desperately need even right now is, if you live through puberty once, you can consider yourself lucky, because nobody would want to do it twice. Anyway, the other thing that we desperately need right now is a performing arts center for the whole community, because there would never be a time that it would never not be used, because there's not an elementary building right now that we have that has adequate staging for the kids to get up there. There's not room for people to be in the gym or the cafeteria to see anything, and there's no place to park. So that's what we came up with.
Okay, our group was surprised by the low 1% spend on technology, especially in light of competing with other countries around the world that tend to excel at such things. Our biggest concern is poverty, as represented here by the 59% of students on free and reduced lunches. And we just talked about all the obstacles that are created to learning when you're in a poverty situation. And we decided for part 2 to lift up also facilities like many others. And we talked of it in terms of recruiting top teaching talent and top business leader talent to the community. It's very difficult to sell St. Joe when they go to the website and pull up a picture of a 100-year-old school building. Thank you.
Our biggest surprise was the 52% that were not ready for kindergarten, and that seems to be a common theme throughout. Our biggest concern is, how do we keep students on target and on grade level? If they're starting out on task 2, it was like, if they're starting out behind when they're starting in kindergarten, have we been able to catch these kids up in kindergarten, or are we pushing a few of these kids along and then they get caught later on when they're not ready? They're not ready to go to middle school. They're not ready to go to high school. So that was probably one of the things that we felt was really important.
Our biggest surprise was the percentage of poverty in our community, and our biggest concern was the percentage of kindergartners not ready for kindergarten. We focused on early childhood education. Some of our key questions and opportunities were, can there be mandatory preschool? Maybe kindergartners could be tested the fall before school begins, a little earlier testing. and more testing sites that are convenient due to lack of transportation? Could parents as teachers work with daycares? Thank you.
Well, like everybody else, you know, our surprises were the fact of kindergarten readiness, the 52%, and also the reduced lunches. That was also our concern. But another big surprise that nobody's really ever talked about, or I've heard yet, is the faculty achievements, like how big those percentages were, like through the nation and the state, and how great that is for our schools. On task 2, we kind of were concerned about the safety and the secure environment. You know, I mean, I grew up in the schools, and I feel like the schools are safe, you know, to where, you know, nothing's going to harm you while you're at school, but we can always improve. And the security of the environments, you know, how, you know, students are treating other students, and even how the staff is treating students. And so I think that's something that we could always work on in our schools.
We shared just about everyone else's concerns with the kids coming into kindergarten and not being prepared. As our biggest surprise, biggest concern was the school district funding and what Dr. Smith said about the reserve fund and the way it's going to be depleted over the next few years. And we all obviously know the economic conditions we're faced with, and probably shrinking tax revenues, not just statewide but also locally. We're going to have some really serious money concerns going forward. So we took it a little bit further with early childhood education in the cycle that started, and a gentleman down there mentioned it, that if these kids are coming in unprepared for kindergarten, how does that translate and go further into their school careers? And even though some of the numbers that we saw with graduation rates are good, how much better could they be? How much more prepared can our children be for the workforce and for college if we can find a way to have them better prepared for their school careers? And I think it's going to take a pretty significant effort on our parts as parents with funding to figure out a way to get these kids into preschool and give them the opportunities. Thank you.
Our biggest concern was that based on what we were reading and hearing is that the focus of a child's success is being put mostly on the teachers. The burden is on the teachers and their certificates, credentials, advanced degrees, or special certificates. Or it's based on, you know, that teacher understanding how to set up their classroom in a way that promotes ideal learning. And what if the teachers are already there, despite how many degrees they have, they're being set up for failure by not being provided the tools that they need, or, you know, a decent, you know, ratio in their classroom. Teachers are expected to, for example, in those lower grades like kindergarten through 2nd grade, what we know is that these classes could have more than 20 children. And as far as reading goes, the teacher is being put into a position where they're expected to work with 5 or 6 students at a time, while the other 15 are expected to stay on task with their assignments at their desk, whether it's spelling or reading to self or going to the computer to do their book reports. Are they even doing their book reports? Because, you know, a teacher can't be everywhere all at once. Can they not do their book reports because the computers are broken in that classroom? We've seen that as well. So basically our concern was that the burden for success of a student is being placed completely on the teacher, regardless if we already have highly skilled teachers in place that are wonderful teachers. So.
Thank you so very much. As you can see, there's some commonality that we have among some of the responses that we have. So you see, we definitely have some areas that are concerns and areas we need to definitely work on. Again, we want to thank you once again for coming, and I want to give you a couple of dates for the next meeting. The next meeting will be held at Central High School Tuesday, April the 20th. Tuesday, April the 20th from 6 to 8. Again, we want to encourage you to invite your friends.